My name is Scott Ritter, and I'm a salesman in my 40s. Unlike most salesmen, I don't go out on client visits. I sit at my desk working on my computer all day. I used to work for a different company before joining Bloom Dining, but I left after things took a bad turn with my boss, Laura Sanko. I should have seen the signs, but back then, I just wanted a job. Laura was the kind of boss who loved power and attention. She never bothered to learn about her staff or what they were working on, but she liked to criticize. One day, after a disagreement, she looked at me with disdain. "You're so gloomy, Scott. We don't need someone like you here." I sighed, and at that moment, I knew I had enough. "Well, then I quit," I said, packed my things, and walked out. For a while, I didn't think about Laura or the company I left behind. I moved on and soon found a job at Bloom Dining, a food and beverage company. This was a fresh start, and I was determined to make the most of it. My new role was different. It wasn't about visiting clients, but researching and strategizing from behind the scenes. I worked under Charles, the director, who valued my insights and respected my experience. I settled into my routine at Bloom Dining, enjoying the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. Then one day, I ran into Laura at a high-end restaurant. She looked just as smug as ever, clearly enjoying herself. Her mocking smile grew wider as she recognized me. Well, if it isn't the gloomy guy from the window seat. "Did someone actually hire you?" she sneered. I looked at her and couldn't help but smile. "Yes, actually, I'm here for a business meeting," I replied, but she interrupted before I could continue. "Business meeting? With who? Are you part of the cleaning staff now?" she said with a laugh, unaware of what was about to unfold. At that moment, Charles, the director of Bloom Dining, arrived and greeted me warmly. Laura's smugness vanished, replaced by confusion. She quickly tried to regain her composure and butter up Charles, but it was clear she was thrown off balance. As we sat down, I handed her my business card. "Scott Ritter, head of food research, Bloom Dining," she read out loud, her voice tinged with disbelief. Seeing the shock on her face was satisfying. She had no idea that the very client she had looked down on me for leaving had now made me a department head. She fumbled, trying to hide her surprise, but I could see the panic behind her eyes. As we talked business, it became evident that our positions had completely reversed. After the meeting, I went back to my work at Bloom Dining, feeling a sense of closure. I hadn't expected to see Laura again, and yet there she was, still as arrogant as ever, but now on the outside looking in. Meanwhile, I continued to build strong relationships at my new job. My role required me to analyze market trends and strategize for future growth. I was making a difference, and it felt good to be recognized for my contributions. Laura's downfall, however, was just beginning. Word spread that her lavish spending on client entertainment had attracted attention from her superiors. She had been using company funds for personal pleasures, and her team was getting fed up. Helen, an old colleague, reached out to me one day. "Scott, you wouldn't believe how bad it's gotten. Laura is blaming everyone else for her mistakes. The whole team is on edge." Helen's message didn't surprise me. I knew Laura's type well. People who thrive on control eventually unravel when they're pushed to their limits, and it seemed that her limits were fast approaching. Her reckless spending was finally catching up with her, and the management started digging into the department's finances. Laura tried to shift the blame onto her team and even hinted at sabotage, but her accusations held no weight. As things spiraled for Laura, I continued to excel at Bloom Dining. Charles was pleased with my work, and I felt valued for the first time in a long while. I reconnected with Michael, a former colleague who had also left our previous company because of Laura. He joined Bloom Dining too, and together we built a team that valued integrity and collaboration. I felt like I had found my place, and I was determined to make the most of this opportunity. Then, out of the blue, I received a message from Laura herself. She wanted to meet. I was curious, so I agreed, wondering what she could possibly want after all this time. We met at a small coffee shop, and I was struck by how much she had changed. She looked tired, her once impeccable appearance now slightly disheveled. She seemed vulnerable, a stark contrast to the confident, domineering woman I remembered. "I need your help, Scott," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know I made mistakes, but things are falling apart, and I don't know what to do." She went on to explain the troubles she was facing, how her superiors were questioning her spending, Izrania, and how her team was turning against her. I listened, nodding occasionally, but I didn't offer any comfort. Laura had dug her own grave, and now she was feeling the weight of it. After a long pause, I finally spoke. Laura, I'm sorry to hear about your troubles, but I'm afraid I can't help you. I stood up, leaving her alone at the table, a woman who had once wielded power with a heavy hand, now watching her empire crumble. As I walked away, I felt a sense of closure. Laura's desperation was a reminder that actions have consequences, and that true success is built on respect and integrity. I had moved on to something better, and I was determined to make the most of it. Back at Bloom Dining, I worked harder than ever, grateful for a second chance and surrounded by colleagues who valued me. But Laura wasn't done yet. Over the next few weeks, I started hearing rumors. She was desperately trying to hold on to her job, throwing blame in every direction. She even accused me of sabotage, despite the fact that I had left the company months ago. Her desperation was palpable, and it was clear that she was grasping at straws. Her actions became more erratic, and her superiors finally took notice. They called her in for a meeting, and after a lengthy investigation, she was demoted. It wasn't long before she left the company altogether, her reputation in ruins. I heard from mutual contacts that she was struggling to find a new job, her name now synonymous with mismanagement and scandal. Meanwhile, things were going well at Bloom Dining. Charles promoted me again, recognizing my hard work and dedication. I had built strong relationships with my team, and I felt valued and respected. Michael and I often reflected on how far we had come, grateful for the opportunity to work in an environment that encouraged growth and integrity. One day, I received a call from Helen, who had finally left the old company as well. She had seen enough of Laura's downfall and decided it was time to move on. She joined a new company and was thriving, grateful to be free from the toxic environment Laura had created. Scott, I can't thank you enough. Seeing you move on gave me the courage to do the same, she said, and I could hear the relief in her voice. Laura's story was a cautionary tale, a reminder of the importance of humility and respect. She had once wielded power with a heavy hand, but in the end, her arrogance was her undoing. And as I continued to build my career at Bloom Dining, I knew that I had made the right choice. I had found a place where I was valued, a place where I could grow, and I was determined to make the most of this second chance. As the months passed, I heard bits and pieces about Laura's struggles. She had tried to start her own business but quickly ran into financial troubles. Her reputation had followed her, and she found it difficult to gain trust in the industry. She reached out to former colleagues, looking for support, but most had moved on and were unwilling to associate with her. Then, one evening, as I was wrapping up a late night at the office, I received a call. It was Laura, her voice strained and desperate. She asked if I could spare a moment to talk. Reluctantly, I agreed, more out of curiosity than anything else. She arrived at the office, looking weary and defeated. She sat across from me and began to explain her troubles. I know I've made mistakes, Scott. I didn't realize how much I was hurting people. I thought I was doing what was best for the company, but I see now that I was wrong. For the first time, I saw genuine regret in her eyes. She went on to apologize for the way she had treated me, acknowledging the harm she had caused. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted to tell you that I'm sorry, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I sat there, taking in her words. I could see that she was truly remorseful, but I also knew that her actions had caused a lot of pain. I nodded, accepting her apology, but I made it clear that there was no going back. Laura, I appreciate your apology, but I've moved on, and so should you, I said, my voice firm. She left that night, and as I watched her walk away, I felt a sense of relief. The chapter with Laura was finally closed, and I could focus on the future. I had found a new home at Bloom Dining, surrounded by people who valued integrity and hard work. And as I looked back on everything that had happened, I knew that I was exactly where I needed to be. The story of Laura Sanko was a reminder of the importance of humility and respect. She had once held power over others, but in the end, it was her arrogance that brought her down. And as I continued to build my career, I knew that I would carry this lesson with me, always striving to treat others with kindness and understanding. Because in the end, true success is built on the foundations of respect and integrity, and I was determined to live by those values.